I'd read some reviews about Hoodwinked that were less than favourable towards the film. However, I thought this looks like my kind of film. I will prove those reviews wrong and enjoy it. Unfortunately, I was wrong. I didn't really enjoy this film, which is unusual because usually when things have negative reviews, or a good number of negative reviews, I tend to like it anyway. I always try and see the positives in films. But for me, I just didn't gel with this one. The animation style was good, kind of like the concept, didn't like the execution of the narrative. This was released in 2005, directed by Cory Edwards, Tye Edwards, and Tony Leech. And we actually have a pretty great voice cast that definitely needs praising. Anne Hathaway voices Red Riding Hood, who's kind of known just as Red. We have Glenn Close as Granny, Patrick Warburton, Jim Belushi, Andy Dick, Cory Edwards, and also Tony Leech as well. So we have the directors voicing, which I think is always interesting because it kind of means they are really getting into the film and kind of putting their whole selves in every aspect. I know some people prefer it when directors don't act in the films because some people think that they should just focus on one aspect of it. But to be honest, personally, it never really bothers me, and certainly I don't think that's why I didn't enjoy the film very much. This, it does sound amazing, it really does. The description from IMDb sums it up really well without giving away any spoilers. And this says, Little Red Riding Hood, the Wolf, the Woodsman, and Granny all tell the police the events that led up to their encounter. So obviously we're in the instance here where Little Red Riding Hood goes to her granny's house, the wolf is there pretending to be the grandmother. The police enter and they all kind of share their encounters of what had happened up to that point. And that sounds interesting. I love crime dramas. I love detective shows. I love fables. And I'm kind of fond of, Little Red Riding Hood. It's not my favourite fairy tale, but I do like it, and I'm very familiar with the story, as most people are. It sounded really interesting. Unfortunately, the narrative that unfolds is just not interesting, and I didn't like it. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. It's not, for example, the pacing of the narrative. It's not, the focus of the characters. There isn't anything specific about it. I just didn't find it engaging. I wish I could put my finger on it, but I can't. But that doesn't bother me too much, the reason why. As I said, the animation style is really nice. That's really pleasing. The voice acting is really good. The narrative just didn't excite me. Maybe I built up too much hope. Maybe it had all of the hallmarks of a kind of film I would enjoy, and it turned out to be one that I didn't enjoy. Maybe certain representations of certain characters, such as Granny, didn't live up to my version of that character. So it's definitely not for me, even though the film is very much written for somebody like me. Everything I've mentioned, it's got all of the hallmarks of the kind of thing that I could potentially adore. And I'm a big fan of animation in general, so it's not even the style of storytelling that didn't appeal to me. I love animation. It is, admittedly, one of my favourite genres. But the narrative just was all over the place. I feel like it was sloppy, and some of the characters just didn't really appeal to me very much at all. They didn't speak to me. I didn't like the interpretations of them. So there, I guess I can identify why I didn't like it. The narrative went back and forth too much, which arguably you could expect with this kind of, recounting narratives. But I wasn't really a fan of the way it was edited together, and the characters' personalities didn't really gel with what's in my mind. Is that the fault of the film? Well, no, it's interpretive, but it didn't appeal to me. So it definitely needs a tidy up. It's not the worst film. If you like fairy tales, if you like unique interpretations of classic tales, and if you like animation, I would recommend you try it, because there are some good points, and it may be your style of narrative. You may like the things that I didn't like, because fundamentally it's not a terrible film, it's not a bad production, it's not like the animation style is appalling or the editing is the worst I've ever seen, but it could do with a tidy up. I won't be watching it again, but I am glad I've seen it, because it's been on my list for a while. It wasn't a harrowing experience, it just didn't live up to my expectations.